Tarantino, he's no longer making the Film Critic, which is pretty wild.
He just announced he's going back to the drawing board.
They said no feet, and he said no movie.
No movie.
What do you think it represents the heart of Quentin Tarantino's style? Go ahead and name off the aspects that come to your mind when you think of his films.
Hey, welcome back to the Wise Works podcast. I missed the wacky wonderful part, but hey,
Totally
that's
messed
okay.
up.
Yeah. Wacky wonderful Wise Works podcast.
Yeah.
All you
Hey.
guys, gals, geeks,
Gals,
and
geeks,
goofballs.
I'm having a brain fart this morning.
What's going on?
Do you guys appreciate Bradley Cooper?
Yes.
Yeah, sometimes.
I think we don't appreciate him enough.
Why?
Yeah.
How's he underappreciated?
I watched A
Josh-
Star is Born last
Of course, A
night,
Star is Born.
and it was funny because I was watching it in my room, and Wyatt, I could hear him from the couch going,
I was not whistling at all last night.
That's
Even
a lie. You whistle all the time.
unintentionally. You're probably working on the podcast while you're whistling one of the songs that was playing. It was funny.
I can assure you I was not.
Okay. Well,
What-
we're
what
gonna
about
about
it? What
because it's not important.
Besides Bradley Cooper's awesome in it, what about it?
I'm just Bradley Cooper in general. I'm not saying specifically that movie, but just let's appreciate Bradley Cooper. He's like done A Star is Born, and even though it had flaws, Maestro was a pretty, cinematic movie. He's also plays Rocket. He's done
The
a lot.
Hangover.
He's played American Sniper.
Excellent
done-
Hangover.
You're getting hung up on the Hangover a little bit.
No, it's a good performance from him in The Hangover.
Limitless, A-Team.
Limitless.
He had an appearance in Sex and the City. I wouldn't know that other
It's
than
a small portion.
Denzie's watching the show.
He's not huge, but he also plays in War Dogs as
Mhm.
the salesman for the ammunition, and he plays that role so well.
Yeah.
So let's appreciate Bradley Cooper a little bit.
All right, Silver Lining Playbook.
Yeah, I'm here with
He's a
Serena.
okay.
He's a
I'm
good
here with-
actor.
Yeah, freaking definitely top 30 actors. Definitely. Probably top 10. Who knows?
I mean, he's starting to creep up on one of my top 5 probably best directors.
Okay, that's pretty.
He's a
Do you
good
think
director.
is there
He's
a role for Bradley Cooper, be it in a film you'd like to see made, or a film that has already been made that you think he would do very well in? Like would he have been, for example, would he have been a good Harvey Dent?
He could 100%
He
play
could.
Harvey.
I think he would have been a great Harvey Dent.
Mhm.
I think
Once he
and
goes Two-Face, oh.
I'm
that'd be
not
freaking
just
awesome.
saying this
performance.
because of like his interaction between Lady Gaga and him in Stars Born, but I would have liked to see him do some kind of directorial debut in like the Joker movie. Like I think he would be able to tell that story just as cinematic and fun.
Wait, you're saying you wanted him to do a Joker movie, another one?
Direct it, not film it. I mean, not be in it. But I know I would like to see
He's
what
not
he
a
would do with.
Joker.
He's not the Joker. I'm saying like him direct the second Joker.
He's
movie.
talking about
I would like to see what he would do with it.
You're
How
saying
he
you
would direct
want
it.
Bradley Cooper to take it from Todd Phillips and direct
No, he's
Sure, I am.
it. That
kind
is
of
what he's saying.
no.
Yes.
He's saying
I'm-
he'd like to see his version of it.
Yes.
What that would look like.
Yes.
It's the same thing I was asking, what he would look like as Harvey Dent, what
Yeah.
he would look like as, I don't know, what's another good character he would be able to play.
You know what really frustrates the crap out of me?
Mm.
There are so many different Jokers in cinema history, and the one obvious one, the one that everyone thinks is obvious, the clear choice has never been casted.
Who?
Willem Dafoe.
Andy Samberg.
Willem
Oh,
Dafoe.
Wait,
Willem Dafoe's old though. He's not
It's
one to
Andy
do that.
Samberg. He would play the best,
Jesse
like,
Eisenberg.
but like Joker is older in a lot of the comics. So,
Michael Cera Joker.
That would
but
be funny.
Literally everybody on Earth who knows Willem Dafoe would be like, yeah, he could be probably the best
Mhm.
representation of a Joker character. And we got a version of it with Green Goblin. We
Yeah,
got
and
Yeah.
then I loved the when he did that interview, he was just doing a random interview talking about his gappy teeth,
yeah.
and the way he was explaining it played just like Joker dialogue, and somebody
Mhm.
edited it to make him look like the Joker.
While he's saying it.
It was wild. It was
Yeah.
really good.
It's perfect. And the way you can see him in face makeup for Joker,
Mhm.
it's just obvious. I don't see literally there's a couple good ones, but like, do we really pick Jared Leto to play a version of Joker
I think
over?
Jared Leto, it plays that character very well. Don't
he's my
downplay the
least
Joker.
favorite.
But he's
Everybody's least favorite.
I prefer Jack Nicholson over
That's
Jared
crazy.
Leto.
That's
Jack Nicholson was not an amazing Joker.
He was
No.
so good.
He was
He's
like
incredible.
So dumb.
one of the first, so he was a trendsetter, but I don't think he was good.
He was good, man.
Now we have so many better examples.
I think the good part about Nicholson, even though it was wacky and weird, it was his voice. It was Jack Nicholson's voice was a very good choice for Joker dialogue, because he's got that already kind of flat, almost Willem Dafoe-esque.
That's what I'm
style
saying, though.
voice.
Why are we dancing around it? Obviously, Willem
You
Dafoe
ever
is the
dance with the
perfect.
devil in the pale moonlight?
I'm gonna go back real quick. I'm gonna take one step back, maybe two steps. I really like Bradley Cooper. I know what characters he's good at playing, but I really like him as this country, almost
Bumpkin.
Western style acting. It shines through a tiny bit with his like country accent and the country singer he plays in A Star Is Born. I would like to see him
Serena,
maybe in like
and
a dramatic,
American Sniper.
a dramatic cowboy movie, maybe not cowboy, but Western, something in that genre would be fun. Like Serena, but more action drama, not a love story. Like Serena was kind of weird. It was Jennifer Lawrence, and that's what it was about. It wasn't so much about Bradley Cooper.
Are you
I would like
kidding?
to see.
No,
It was about both
No.
of them. I'm not
Bradley
debating what
Cooper
that movie
was the
was. I'm
protagonist.
confused what it is.
Bradley Cooper was the protagonist, and I don't know in storytelling format. What did you ever watch Serena, Wyatt?
I've seen it like 4
She
times.
wasn't
I don't
an
know what it's about.
antagonist. Look, she was not an antagonist, but there were moments that she felt like one, right?
You know what's cool about like his performance is I know you mentioned Limitless. Did you guys ever watch the like one season of the Limitless show that came out?
I only watched his
but
movie.
I've wanted to.
So I enjoyed the show. It was about a completely different character who was on the same drug, and he was working with the police. And so it had that sort of white collar consultant cop show,
like
right?
Cop show.
He was working with like the FBI or something. And in like 1 or 2 episodes, Bradley Cooper shows up.
Wait, does he?
Oh yeah. And
I gotta watch this now.
And it made the whole show feel like part of the movie. It was really good. There was I think there was one point where I want to say it was Bradley Cooper snipes somebody from like way farther away than humanly possible, because he's,
calculating everything.
Yeah, he's calculating everything. He shows up in the show 1 or 2 times, and it brought a lot of life to the universe. And every time he gets on screen, you're like, oh, it's the guy.
It's him. No, but Josh, I understand I understand getting the Bradley Cooper bug a little bit. But if we're being honest, I've been on this for like 4 years.
You have been
4 or 5 years.
I'm appreciating him now. it's just
It's just because you saw
appreciate it.
Maestro and you saw A Star Is Born with new eyes, and you're like,
Well,
dang it, I've
I
kind
don't
of
think
undervalued this fella.
I've definitely undervalued him, but it's because I've only seen him as an actor and not a director. I'm not even saying like his acting is I'm not saying it's bad in any way. I'm just saying I'm not saying that to me I love his acting. It's just his directing with the acting. He just knows how to do those two things very well to create this story that will pull you at your tug strings and
Mhm.
it will, just hit you right here in the feels.
I would say I always kind of recognized that he was a good actor, but it wasn't till Guardians of the Galaxy where I was like, he's gonna play Rocket Raccoon, and then he comes in just with one of the best voice acting
Yeah.
performances I think ever with Rocket. It's iconic.
Yeah.
His
Yeah.
voice as Rocket is iconic.
Well, another thing that's notable for Bradley Cooper is that he is kind of the only director that Steven Spielberg constantly sings the praises of.
Yeah.
If you see an interview where Steven Spielberg's talking about directing or something, like there's a good chance he's going to bring up Bradley Cooper. Steven Spielberg was gonna do Maestro.
Yeah.
And he told Bradley Cooper, you don't just
Yeah.
need to you don't need to just act. You need to direct this film. So Steven Spielberg literally said, I'm not the right director for Maestro. You are, right? And Steven Spielberg loves Bradley Cooper and his directing. So if that holds water, Steven Spielberg's one of the greatest directors in cinema history. So yeah, if he's singing the praises of him constantly, I think that it's noteworthy, right?
You know, another actor I don't think gets enough credit is John Malkovich.
Okay.
From Bradley Cooper to John Malkovich.
Okay.
I just love every time John Malkovich is on screen. I love him too, even though it's every time, he's just John Malkovich.
Yeah. No, what did I watch him recently in? Well, okay, for one,
What-
I didn't know.
He delivers
Yeah.
his lines, and what's funny is that's just how he talks to people in real life.
Mhm. I know. Well, every character's it's the same. So there was a movie I saw recently that he kind of popped up in. I can't remember it, but
Get
what
my agent on the phone.
Home.
I want to be in this film.
I think what was the movie that he was younger in? Empire of the Sun, right? Was that
Yeah.
it? Freaking, I didn't know he was in that, but whoa, freaking awesome in that
He's
movie.
young in that one.
Yeah. I'm trying
It's
to
almost.
figure out.
I always thought as a kid. I thought that the hobo ghost in Polar Express was John Malkovich.
Oh yeah.
But
Really?
I think he just looks like John Malkovich,
Just kind of.
but played by Tom Hanks.
Yeah, played by Tom Hanks. I can't remember what. I'm not seeing the movie, but I recently saw a film where he kind of like showed up in for a moment, and I was so happy to see him. There is something
Yeah.
special when he comes on screen.
Every time he comes on screen, I'm kind of happy.
You're like, oh,
Um,
upwards.
but-
I'm happy now.
But talking about directors,
Mhm.
high status directors. Our first topic is about Quentin Tarantino. I don't know if you guys saw this news. This is the only slide I have for Tarantino, simply because I was going to get one of his face, but gosh, he's not. I didn't want to have his face up here.
You didn't want the weak chin and the
It's not
receding
weak.
hair?
It's not a weak chin. It's like he's like all chin.
It's-
He's all chin, nose, and forehead.
Okay, what do we have? I'm assuming this is about the
Movie Critic.
critic. More critic news, because we've talked about this when it first came out.
Well, a lot of people's been talking about this.
So he's no longer making the Film Critic, which is pretty
What?
wild.
He was gonna. Is this because?
Nose, forehead, and chin.
Yeah.
Everything is just kind of. Smushed together.
Is this because he's like, I've only got one more film left? I don't want to waste it on this movie.
I've looked for different reasons, but nobody really has a solid answer as to why. Have you guys seen anything in the news outlets about why?
So
Probably what I just
the
said.
basic idea is that he just announced he's going back to the drawing board, right?
Okay.
Here's my thoughts, and this is kind of a roundabout way to hit this, but I think this actually holds water. So Quentin Tarantino, from the start of his career, right? Sorry. It has been important to him in order to get his film sold, to be popular, to keep the reputation, is that he has stars. If you hear any interviews he does where he's breaking down the film process, he's always talking about making sure he has a star, you know what I mean? Or making sure he has a couple stars to play this role. And you know, he really hustled in his early career to reach out to people's agents to make sure the star was in his movie, right? And that's valuable. It sells your movie. It's one of the reasons he is who he is, because he prioritized getting people of note in his movies. I think he probably had Brad Pitt and maybe one to three other actors he was pursuing. And he probably wrote the film critic with them in mind. They probably said no. And he's saying, all right, well, this script's not going to work without them.
Yeah.
I think he's that kind of person. I think he's that kind of director.
No to him, though. Why would they say no?
Well,
if
they're busy.
I think if, like, for example, if it were Brad Pitt, if Brad Pitt was supposed to be an integral part of the movie critic, reprising his role as the stuntman from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which is what they were saying. If he backed out and that was an integral part of the movie, then were we going to read any of that article?
Oh, well, it's up to you. You were talking.
Yeah, I mean, so scroll down a little bit, going back to the drawing board, down a little bit more. So I thought this was interesting. No studio was attached to the Movie Critic, which has become the latest project to fall by the wayside for Tarantino. And then they list other examples.
Maybe they said no feet, and he said no movie.
No movie. Well, I don't think that's it. Scroll down, because there was a portion of this where it talked about what the movie was kind of going to be about.
Sorry.
Yeah. So, dang, that's not it either. Where? It's the paragraph right under that.
Okay.
So Tarantino is expected to continue working in the creative fields even after he makes one last feature. He suggested directing limited series or plays, novelist, blah blah blah. Among its revelations was a deeper understanding of Cliff
Booth's backstory and psychological.
So when he published his novelization of Hollywood in 2021, so he really likes this character Cliff Booth, this fake, this like imaginary stuntman who's in Hollywood, which is a great through line. I love the through line of Brad Pitt's character in Hollywood, and it seemed like to me that the Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, he put a lot of love into that movie, and you could feel it. I watched the movie and enjoyed the movie, and it was like, this is, I think, one of his best, especially in recent years, because it felt like it had a lot of Tarantino, which is
most films he does,
which is a lot of times the like almost alternate history he's done with Inglourious Bastards and things like that, where he kind of changes the outcome. And that one felt like sort of a what would happen if these characters were involved in this, what would have played out. And it felt like there was a lot of love in that. And I think the film critic, if he's kind of playing off the same stuff that he played off in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, he really wants it to feel again, like an homage or like something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's not going exactly the way he wants it to, then yeah, I understand him wanting to back out of that.
Right. And also that maybe he just also, there's also just the element of saying like, is this truly my last film?
Mhm.
If it is this a good enough script?
Right. If
Yeah.
To
like,
be my freaking goodbye?
look at the movies he's done, you know?
There's
The
some really high quality ones here.
and lots of big action.
Django, Pulp
Once upon a
Fiction.
time in Hollywood, not a lot of big action in that.
Nobody.
The last scene is like the most action, but I almost wonder if he's like, do I want to do this sort of slower paced piece when I have all of these things like Kill Bill and Inglourious Bastards with these big scenes of action, and
Django's was huge. Remember just the big killing spree at the end?
yeah, do I want to go out on I almost wonder if he's wondering, do I want to go out on something like The Film Critic in Hollywood, or do I want to go out on something a little bit more action heavy?
Do you think he's got something in his pocket? Maybe not specifically, but he's like, I want to write this one thing into whatever movie I make. If it be, another Inglourious Bastards, another Western, another what. And he's like, I'm going to put this thing in it that's going to be like this bomb drop as I'm kind of leaving.
It could.
No?
Do you have an example in your mind?
I don't know. He's been around Hollywood for a while. He's like,
like
or he makes a hint of something that, I don't know.
So talking about
on the island.
Talking about something like that, like something he knows, and putting that in the movie.
Yeah.
That could have been the movie's called The Film Critic. That could have been part of the story, and maybe he started filming, or he started getting ready, and he was just like, I don't know that I want to build an entire movie around dropping a piece of information or just my thoughts on Hollywood again. I feel like I've already kind of done that. So we'll see. He might just retool it, and he's just going back to the drawing board for this movie. He might not. I don't know that he's scrapping it.
True.
It's also possible he doesn't want. Maybe he just decided he doesn't want a story about Hollywood to be what he leaving with. Like maybe he's just like, it's a good idea for a story, but actually, I don't want this to be my last film, and it's kind of about Hollywood. It kind of like it distracts from these amazing other films
on
that he
Rogan.
had. Yes, I watched him on Rogan, 100%. What are you, crazy?
To me, he seemed very evident of that is what he wants to leave Hollywood with. That's why he made Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
But the thing is, he's done it.
Like he's hinting of a narrative that he wants to tell about his time in Hollywood, almost like
maybe.
An homage to
did the article say? Did the article say there was no studio backing it yet?
No, it did.
It said that there wasn't any studio on board with it at the moment.
Maybe it's too intense for studios. Maybe no studio in Hollywood's willing to pay for it.
Maybe, but this is Quentin. Just do it yourself. And
look, even Quentin can freaking. Well, no, because Quentin's not going to dish out millions and millions of dollars. Like, how much is the average Quentin Tarantino film budget?
I don't know. He's always got a lot of big actors in it.
Let's just say
I'm
70 to 100 million.
I mean, the big ones you could probably look up are the more recent ones, like Django, like what's the one, the Western one in the
Once
cabin?
Upon a Time in Hollywood was $90 million.
Yeah, that's probably pretty average.
So,
Django.
Wouldn't it be wild though if his last movie,
100 million, was Django,
was completely different than all of the other ones?
I mean,
I know they've all been different, You know, you go from something like Jackie Brown to Inglorious Bastards, but what if he just, if I'm talking like completely different shooting style, editing style that feels
Like we
very
lost the soul of of
no, no,
Quentin
no,
Tarantino.
no. Like I feel like it would still feel like Tarantino, but it would be a different movie altogether.
All right, from your guys' perspective, one at a time, please.
Mhm.
What do you think it represents the heart of Quentin Tarantino's style? Go ahead and name off the aspects that you come to your mind when you think of his films.
Dialogue heavy, conversational based stuff
Mm-hmm.
with an aspect of drug use, an undertone of drug use, because he likes to tell those two things.
So
Or
constant drug
well,
use, long
constant drug use
dialogues.
with dialogue heavy communication, if that makes sense.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
long dialogue scenes, a lot of drug use. All right, Wyatt.
A sort of almost, I would say, a sort of irreverence for classical filming style. He's always sort of taken a unique stance
Mhm.
to how he films things, and going outside of the box, almost to the point sometimes where it's like, and not going outside of the box, using the stereotypes of filming, but ramped up. Like the zoom, like a zoom in shot is never just like, you know, a zoom in. It's always a real big zoom in.
Yeah.
You know, a panning shot is never just a pan over. It's always like, oh, whoa, super pan
Mhm.
over or something
Very
like that.
dramatic.
Very, very dramatic with the way that he films things. So, almost taking all of those things that you learn about filming and just ramping them up to 10
Mhm.
to be like, you can film like this too. You can make things extremely dramatic. And then also, you know, you just film it well as well.
I think the things that he done. You're kind of when I think of his movies, you're right. There's aspects for all of this, but I do think that, in my opinion, the
Feet.
biggest aspect is
Yeah, feet.
no. It's gonna
That's
be
one.
outside of the box, and you're kind of touching on it with like subverting what traditional filmmaking has.
Maybe not outside the box, but maybe outside of the shoe.
Definitely
I
outside
gave
the
you guys
shoe.
both time to explain your thoughts, and you guys are just leaning into this.
Mm-hmm. Well,
Go.
also,
Keep going.
also, I think this is good and bad, but it has precedent. Is pretentious.
A little bit.
He can be pretentious, and you see that come through in the filmmaking and in the movies.
Mhm.
Which, you know, it's anytime somebody's like, oh yeah, this is a Quentin Tarantino movie, it's because of that. And I think
Mhm.
that can be good and bad for audiences. What were you saying, Joe? Sorry.
I was just gonna. I was gonna explain some cinematography stuff, and then I was gonna end with a Sam Jackson commonality joke, but that's all
Okay,
right.
just give us the
Sam
joke of the
Jackson
Sam
is
Jackson.
always
He's in every one of his movies, I feel like.
Yeah, he's missed about 4 or 5 of them.
Which one is he not in? Is he in? He's not in Inglorious Bastards, is he?
I don't think he is. He's not in Kill Bill, right?
He is
Yes,
in Kill Bill.
Okay.
Briefly, very briefly. He's the piano player.
Was Sam Jackson in? I actually still have yet to watch Once Upon a Time. Was he in Once Upon a Time?
I just watched it.
There's
Maybe.
one. There's at least one of them where he's not in the film, but he's like the narrator, I think, of the film. Is he the
Well-
narrator? I can't remember if that's Once Upon a Time or not.
The big
I don't
notable,
remember.
the notable ones are obviously Pulp Fiction, Django, and Hateful Eight. Those are the notable ones that he's in, right? Where he's
Yeah.
taking big roles.
No. No. Jackie Brown.
Yeah,
He
he's a big
Right.
role. In
Okay.
Jackie
He's a
Brown.
big role, and it's so different from Samuel Jackson. It doesn't feel like a traditional Samuel Jackson.
He's not in the credits of. He's not in the acting credits of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
So he
Okay,
probably
maybe he's
skipped
not.
on that one.
Mhm.
He'll probably, I mean, just for his streak, he has to be in Quentin's last film. It seems like it would be wrong if he wasn't.
I wouldn't be surprised.
So, with all of this, what do you guys think? We theorized a lot about what this could be.
Serialized.
What do you think is the most reasonable explanation for why he's no longer doing the movie critic, the film critic?
He's only got one more movie left, and he's not quite fleshed out the movie critic. I don't think he's done with the movie critic. I think he just
I would agree.
fleshed it out for his final film. He wants to flesh it out a little more.
If
and he's like,
if he's hitting snags, then he's just retooling.
And he also okay, this is a weird thing. How old is Quentin these days? He literally just got married. He just got married like a couple years ago and has like a kid, which is weird. He's like 100 years old.
Could be. I mean, that could be an aspect, but
he's 61 years old.
Okay, that's not as old as I thought. But
he is granddaddy.
No, he's not a granddad. He's a dad.
Granddaddy age.
But he's a dad. He just became like a dad for the first time like 2 years ago.
That's what Hollywood will do to you.
Yeah.
So it just wasn't a good fit for his last film. He's hitting snags. There wouldn't be this much press around it. There wouldn't be this much attention if it wasn't for the fact that he's like, this is my last feature film.
10 movies.
If this wasn't the last one, we wouldn't be too upset being like, oh, he's pivoting. He had a script and he's changing it. Now it's just because we're all on the edge of our seat being like, how are you going to end this crazy career you've had? That's why we're on the edge of our seat.
Yeah, that's all I had for this one.
I wanted to ask you guys
the member.
Oh, sure. Thank you, Pamela McGovern, for being a YouTube member. She has chosen to go to Wiseworks Studio, hit the join button for $3.99 a month. She gets perks. The kind of perks she gets is she gets the pre-show that's exclusive to Patreon and YouTube memberships. She gets podcasts like this a week early. Comes out on Monday rather than Fridays, right? She also gets watch parties that are exclusive. She gets her names in the end of credits of podcasts and videos, but she also gets a personalized shout out like we're doing right now. Pamela McGovern, you and your support means a whole lot to us. And we will never, ever, ever take it for granted. Take it for granted.
Take it for granted.
Do you guys see there's a movie that M. Night Shyamalan's coming out with called Trapped? Did you guys see that trailer?
I did.
I have not.
I didn't watch the whole thing.
I missed it.
I'm not excited for anything M. Night Shyamalan.
Why?
Nothing?
He's either
so old and
really good
Knock at the Cabin both put a sour taste in your mouth?
Yeah.
Okay, no, his stuff is either really good or really bad. He always leans towards.
I wouldn't say anything he's done is really bad. Nothing he's done is really bad.
Leans towards not great most of the time. It's more average, not great.
Well,
but his concepts are awesome. It's good to watch him for his concepts. There's something up there in his ticker that he's good at storytelling. He just can't flush it out.
No, I think he's
flush it out.
I think he's a bit blocked when it comes to how do I take this crazy concept I've done
if you're blocked, you gotta flush it out.
End it in a satisfying way. I think sometimes he hits it on the head.
I mean,
he hits the head.
I think Old specifically was a good movie. He just didn't quite plunge out the idea and get what he wanted with Old. It could have been a better story.
Don't laugh, Wyatt. I just had a hit the head joke, and you overlooked it.
It didn't have anything to do with the flushing.
Doesn't matter.
Keep going, Wyatt. Continue talking about M. Night and talk about
so look, I agree with what you're saying about concept, but I don't think you can't when you come out of a movie, you don't go, that was a good movie because of the concept. Everything else was crap. You can't categorize that as a good movie. Like you said, the concepts are interesting, but the execution is poor. And it really feels like he's flushing a lot of these ideas.
It's sure. I mean, yeah, yes, that is true. He just needs to sit with an idea a little bit longer. I know you're not supposed
I
to
know.
linger
Look.
on these things, but
I don't think it doesn't matter how long you're sitting on an idea. I think what matters the most is how is he executing this ultimate
Exactly.
experience. And like with Signs, it was a good execution, right?
yeah.
With
Even The
Old,
Village is an idea. It just was a little bit weird.
right?
I like The Village.
I like The Village too.
It,
I like the way it
it's
ends.
got a
I
lot
like
of
everything.
holes, but again, the I even like the concept for the what's the woman in the water or something.
Yeah.
I like the idea. I like the idea of a film that all kind of a sort of fantasy.
Mhm.
What would you call that? Dark fairy tale that
Yeah.
all takes place in this little like
I have that
apartment
movie. I need to
complex.
watch it again.
I always sort of liked the idea, but again, it's about the execution.
Mhm.
It's about the follow through.
Yeah. I think so if people that are interested, the trailer gives away kind of the opening premise for this new Trapped movie he's doing.
Mhm.
And because it's M. Night Shyamalan, no one's ever really sure how it's going to end. But the premise is this dad and daughter. Did you guys watch the trailer and understand the premise? Why Joshua
No,
hasn't?
we'll do a reaction to it, which probably will come out before this
Well,
video.
we're talking. People are listening to a
I didn't
podcast
finish
now.
the trailer. I
I
saw
wanna do a
some of the
reaction to it.
trailer,
It
and then I
doesn't
saw
matter.
M. Night
Look,
Shyamalan, and I bounced.
I'm giving a premise of what the trailer has, so that people that are listening to it don't have to wait for or go to a different video to hear our thoughts on this. We're talking about it now. So the trailer's concept for the movie is father and daughter are going to a concert. The daughter's like a big fan of it. It's kind of like reminiscent of like a Taylor Swift concert or something, but it's not Taylor Swift, obviously. It's a big concert.
I did see this.
Big concert. She's like, "This is the best day ever." And then he goes to the bathroom, and he is looking around, and he's noticing the whole place is full of cops. Every exit is blocked. He asks one of security, like the guys who do the metal detector, what's going on, and he said, "You know that serial killer that's been cutting people up?" He said, "They got a tip that he's going to be here today."
That sounds like perfect M. Night dialogue.
Yeah.
Basically,
That
and
sounds like
he's
word for
basically
word.
like, he's like, "Don't rat on me. I'm not supposed to tell anybody." This dad goes to the bathroom, pulls up his phone, types into like a secret app, and he's got someone locked up in some secret place. So it reveals he's the serial killer, the dad. All right.
Mhm.
So this movie's gonna be kind of how is the serial killer gonna get out of this situation, right?
Mhm.
And how does he
Ooh.
stay under the radar? Now, that's the premise. There's probably going to be a crazy M. Night twist that we don't know about yet, but that's what the trailer has given us, right?
Yeah.
I'm just by knowing M. Night and watching his stuff, my guess is in the trailer we see the dad, oh, he's the killer. But really, he's not the killer. The killer is blackmailing him to do something else. It might be a little bit more complicated than that, but that seems
That's possible. Yeah,
It's
that's
not
possible.
impossible.
The real killer is blackmailing him.
The real killer's like one of the musicians on stage or something like that.
Mhm.
That would be it. That definitely track for an M. Night movie.
Or the opposite. The whole thing is like,
Or the opposite.
Or the opposite. Let's subvert it.
it's a social experiment like Old, where they're trying to. It's some kind of like
Old was not a social
experiment.
Old wasn't a social experiment.
But it was an experiment.
It was an experiment. It wasn't a
Experiment
social
for-
experiment, right?
In a way, it kind of was.
Dude, the movie was good. Old was good once they revealed in the last 10 minutes that it's this lab doing the experiments.
It felt like.
It's like, why wasn't that all throughout?
Do you think?
Because that was the reveal.
Do you think M. Night? I don't know his personal life. I haven't really dug deep into what he's doing off directing. But do you feel like he's got a lot of dad and daughter relationships in a lot of his movies? Do you think he's kind of at this preface of like he's having kids and he's like
He's always sort of had a very heavy emphasis on the relationships between parents and their children in almost every movie. Watch
a lot of dad.
Signs,
Signs,
Old. even Split. Old,
his last one, Knock at the Cabin.
Almost every
New
movie
one, Trap.
has been
Trap.
has had a very, very heavy emphasis on the relationship between parents and children,
Specifically fathers. And also there's the element of Pennsylvania as well. Like, he cares a lot about Pennsylvania. So yeah, you're right. That's interesting. A lot of his movies are parents, specifically dads in Pennsylvania. So I'm sure it's going to be a similar vibe with Trap, and I don't know what point he's trying to make. I actually really like M. Night Shyamalan. I'm always going to give him the benefit of the doubt. I'm always going to try one of his movies.
Me too.
But not to say they're all great. I didn't particularly care for Knock at the Cabin. I will say this. He casts to always make the story and the characters feel engaging. And then after the movie, you're like, the characters were amazing. I don't know if the story held up, you know what I mean? But the characters were like all the characters in Knock at the Cabin were very engaging, like very interesting. It kept you captivated. Just the story lacked a lot, right?
It's really.
Didn't that movie have eyebrows in it? Will Poulter?
Will Poulter? Did it have Will Poulter?
Let me look it up.
Toy Story.
Wasn't he one of the horsemen to Will's movie?
I think it was Rupert Grint from Harry Potter.
Oh,
Okay,
yes, yes. You're right. I was thinking it was eyebrows.
Rupert Grint. It wasn't eyebrows.
Yes, you're right.
It's funny going from talking about Quentin Tarantino to M. Night Shyamalan. It's such a weird.
But check this
dichotomy.
Going from Bradley Cooper to Quentin to.
Well, the interesting thing about this is that from Quentin Tarantino and M. Night Shyamalan, they're not the only, but they are one of the top directors that have a very seeable and unique style in their story.
Almost predictable. An almost predictable style of filmmaking where it's like, Quentin Tarantino's like, there's going to be feet.
Why are you guys so on the feet thing?
Okay.
There's always going to be feet. There's always be feet.
Sure.
There's going to be feet and it's going to be weird. There's going to be specific kind of camera shots. There's going to be heavy dialogue. There's going to be drug use and violence. With M. Night Shyamalan, there's going to be bad dialogue.
There's going to be fathers.
There's going to be fathers. There's going to be
Pennsylvania.
A concept. There's probably going to be Pennsylvania. And there's assuredly going to be some sort of twist.
Assuredly a twist. I think M. Night Shyamalan has always, ever since his first movie with a twist, which was like, what was it? Seven. What is that movie called? Sixth Sense?
The Sixth Sense.
Sixth Sense.
Sure.
Ever since that big twist, I feel like he's chasing the dragon. You know what I mean?
He's chasing that high. He got critical acclaim because of that twist, and he's always been chasing that twist ever since. It was
like, I gotta try to find a new twist.
It was similar to the Darth Vader, I'm your father twist, and he got that kind of critical acclaim for it.
He got that kind of love, that kind of freaking respect.
Ever since then, he's always been like, I need that again. I need audiences to see that I can do it again.
And I don't know if any twist has come close. I honestly don't think any twist has come close.
I mean, you could say Inception is like what's going on in Inception, but that's a different twist than anything M. Night's done.
Mm-hmm.
Inception.
What's the twist in Inception?
Inception's not a Shyamalan film.
No. I'm saying no. I'm comparing other things to M. Night.
Oh,
Like
well,
to
yeah,
the
other
twist
directors can
of-
do good twists.
Yes.
Oh,
But-
I think the Get Out twist, the twist at the end of Get Out for a
Right.
lot of people with the girlfriend was
That was a big deal.
close, was pretty close to M. Night Shyamalan.
And
Jordan
and
Peele.
honestly, I think Jordan Peele might be also chasing the Get Out love. Like, so much respect and love he got for Get Out. Jordan Peele might be trying to chase that same kind of love, and he just hasn't quite hit it. What's interesting?
I don't know. I think he's done a good job. I
he's
think
done
that
a good job. I'm just saying,
the
I don't
movie he
think
did right after, but then wasn't as good in people's minds.
Us?
But then the Alien one,
Nope.
I think people really liked Nope.
Well, I think
people liked it better than us, but it
yeah,
didn't
they
like
liked it better than us.
Like
And
Get Out. I would agree.
honestly, Nope is more remembered for the monkey bit than
Mhm.
anything else. I think the monkey bit in that scene, which was kind of a side quest a little bit, was the most notable part of that movie.
I think I've watched Nope. I think probably 2 or 3 times, and
Mhm.
I appreciate it more
the more you
after.
watch it.
Yeah, it really is just a good horror movie.
Yeah. And using the well camera is a good idea too. That was really well executed.
Speaking of which, speaking of horror movies,
All right.
I've been on a little bit of a horror binge recently.
Yeah.
All right.
What do you?
And
what are you
sort of meshing with our theme of books to movies, I wanted to sort of pose a question to you guys. I don't know how many horror stories you've read,
Mm-hmm.
Red.
but yeah. So I mean, obviously the way in which you consumed horror media back in the old days was via books.
Yes.
Yeah.
But then the movie came along, the
Okay.
film, right? The picture.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it changed horror completely. And so I kind of wanted to ask you guys, what do you think is the most significant part of a horror movie compared to a story, just a
Okay.
story that you hear? Because we all grew up with listening to horror stories around the campfire.
Yes.
Why is the horror movie such a compelling genre?
Okay, I have so many thoughts right off the top. One, just on a human level, it's capturing all of our senses, and it's happening to us rather than us in our mind being willing to enter with our imagination. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Yeah.
So that the horror movie is happening to us as opposed to us engaging with the horror story, because
But
you can literally just tune it out and not engage your imagination, and a horror story does not scare you, right?
See, I feel like the horror story, if told correctly, sticks in your brain and actually makes you feel horrified of the things in the dark, right?
So
Mhm.
you're saying what's better, the book or a movie?
Well, I'm not necessarily saying what's better. I'm saying what are the big differences? Because like I said, I think the story itself, when you read a really good horror story, because you have to imagine it,
Mhm.
it forces you, the reader or the listener, to imagine the horror, right? Whereas the movie shows you the horror.
Yeah, yeah.
Which one do you think is more impactful?
I have a dumb question that I don't know the answer to.
Okay, that's pretty regular.
No, this is a legitimate thing. Is there ratings for books? Like,
Mhm.
well, I did not know this. Like,
Yeah.
We've got R because there's a lot of, you're not visually seeing the
Oh,
horror
oh,
or the
oh.
nudity, but it's like we're going to be talking about this in the book, and that's in the book.
They have
So
ratings that are based on age requirement
It's a little bit looser, but you can
because you can't mandate it. Anyone can
Yeah.
pick the book, right?
Yeah.
sure. But, I mean, you're just reading it, not visually seeing it, but that could be a thing.
Lots of horror books often have almost a disclaimer up front that's like, here, there's going to be descriptions of horrifying things
but
involved.
no actual rating.
Not really. I don't think
Interesting.
so.
We should create that.
We should look it up, definitely. But
We should create a rating for like a mature rating for books.
Sure. I mean,
I think there probably is one already, but
Hmm.
it's a much looser structure than with movies. So I went through. I just grabbed a couple of horror movies that came from books. Jaws, for example.
Mhm.
I think people said that the book
Mhm.
was bad,
Uh-huh.
or like the story, whatever book it came from, was bad, and then Spielberg really amped it up into like an incredible horror movie.
Right.
well, for this specifically, it's not about the actually seeing the horror. Yes, you do see a
Mhm.
little bit of the horror, and that solidifies you being scared. But it's about this movie perfected the anticipation, if that makes sense, because it's like the camera going in the water. And it's like, is this a shark or not a shark? And
Yeah.
that is what makes it scary, not so much seeing the horror on screen.
And kind of just knowing that the shark is in the water, even
Mhm.
when you're on land and perfectly safe.
Right.
The shark being in the water is scary, and I think that's what he executed very well on.
Yeah.
That I think a movie like this would do much better than a book. It's harder to do that in a book.
Hear me out.
It would be as good if somebody else did it. Steven Spielberg hit the nail on the head with this movie.
Mhm.
So kind of what I was saying before, there's an element of control when you're reading versus when you're watching, all right? So when you're reading, things are going to happen that you don't want to happen, right?
Mhm.
But you have to stay engaged in order for you to really feel the impact of the horror or the fright, I guess.
Right.
With movies, it's kind of hijacking your senses, all right?
Mhm.
Once you've started down the road of a movie, the opening, it hijacks your senses to where you are out of control. You're locked in and you are going to experience visually, auditorily, emotionally, all of the horrible things that awaits you in this movie. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? And all your senses are capturing it. And
So I have a hypothesis that is sort of when you read a book or listen to a story, you have to imagine the horror, and if you come away from that story horrified, it did its job, or
Right.
unsettled, or right, and it'll stick with you, and you think about it afterwards. That's kind of the point, is you're thinking about it afterwards. I think a good horror movie does the same thing visually.
Yes. And visually is another layer, that because in our mind's eye, it's limited by your ability to have an imaginative spirit.
Mhm.
So people that are very imaginative are going to be heavily impacted by horror books.
Did you guys ever read any horror stories growing up?
I did, and actually one sticks with me. So it was kind of like teen horror, and it was
Mhm.
actually done by Frank Peretti, who's a Christian horror writer, right?
Yeah.
I read these. What was it? There was these two books. One, I actually have an example of what I'm actually saying. That he did these two books that were kind of like two kids and like their dad. It was kind of Indiana Jones archaeology kind of style,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I remember those books.
And I read one. Well, I started reading one that was called, let's see, The Door in the Dragon's Throat. All right.
You have it pulled up?
I just have his books pulled up so I know the names of them.
Can can you show us the screen? I'm
Yeah.
so curious of
Yeah. Okay,
to look at
so
this, the artwork for this.
The door in the dragon's throat.
Yeah.
That didn't take me to that, whatever that was. But so it's this book right here. It's kind of small on the screen.
Yeah, can you just zoom in on your screen?
No,
So
I
we
don't
can-
have freaking.
You're,
No,
Yeah, we
you
got it.
on your lap-
We
okay,
got
you
the
got
image.
it.
Yeah.
Look,
I thought
so
you-
this
Right there.
one,
You can look it up for yourself.
this one, I did not engage my imagination. Okay.
Mhm.
Mm.
In the same series. And so I wasn't very frightened, but everyone that read this that I knew said this is the most scary of all these series, right?
Mhm.
The
Right.
Door in the Dragon's Throat. I did, however, engage my imagination for this one.
Yeah.
The Tomb of Anak, right? And it was very scary. I think about it constantly, all right? Not constantly. If I'm talking about when you said horror books that you've read, I thought this one, all right?
Yeah.
Joseph's like, he's like checking under his bed. The tomb. The guy- he's still scared of the book.
All right, so this one's considered less frightening than The Door to the Dragon's Throat, right? But this is the one I engaged my imagination in, okay?
Mhm.
Yeah.
This one, I don't even think I think I got half or like 3/4 of the way through the book and stopped because I literally, again, it's like I wasn't quite getting there. And I think I was reading it because I was like, I want to experience the most scary version of these, right?
Mhm.
And I was probably like 12 or 13 when I was reading these, right?
Yeah.
And I just wasn't getting it. And maybe there was the aspect of my expectations coming into it. We've talked last week on my ability to comprehend and everything. And so that probably plays a part of it. But with this one, it captured me and I didn't have a whole lot of expectation when I read it. And
Mhm.
this one really impacted me.
So there's a couple of books that I read when I was younger that like the horror sticks with me.
Mhm.
The one when I was pretty young, but there was an audio book called Kayatoka. I'm sure I've talked about it before, but there's an
Yeah.
image that sticks out in my head from the book where like a body, like a dead body, just starts being animated and reanimated and puppeted in front of the main character, and it's horrifying. And then this was later in life, but I read a couple of Michael Crichton books like
Mhm.
Jurassic Park and Timeline, but Prey was about like nanobots. That one, there's a couple of scenes in that still stick with me.
It's funny
So,
that
yeah.
you call it scenes.
Yeah, because of the way it's described, and
Chapters?
they play like scenes in my head,
Uh-huh.
and that's, I think, the point is when you read these stories. I don't know if you guys read any creepypastas online, like the Reddit stories or whatever.
I've heard people read them on YouTube videos. Like some people
Mhm.
read them, right?
Those I read a couple of those that sort of stuck with me. But again, it's in your imagination, whereas the movies themselves, they show you, and I think it's supposed to elicit the same response, because the scene in Prey, like there's a specific scene in Prey where that sticks in my head, or that puppeteering of the body in Kayatoka
Mhm.
sticks in my head the same way that like the final scene in The Fly with Jeff Goldblum does.
Mhm.
It's supposed to, when you finish the story, you're supposed to feel kind of like unsettled.
Sure.
And I think the two big horror movies that did that for me recently were The Fly and The Thing.
Yeah. You've
You
been
say
watching
horror
The Thing,
movies?
like
Mhm.
how many times have you watched The Thing?
I've seen The Thing so many times by this point. It, and Alien too. When you come away from the movie feeling like unsettled,
Mhm.
Jurassic Park,
Mhm.
I
same
never
sort
read
of thing.
Well, I actually haven't read all of these books. So all I could do, I can't take the movie and the book. I haven't
Mhm.
consumed them both and compare. All I could do is just theorize. I mean, obviously there are a lot of horror movies that just do not work. And I think that's the danger. Like you can talk about, like if you read a book about Annabelle, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think if you're engaged, Annabelle as a book can be a lot more effective on your imagination and frightening than the movies was. And there's that element of kind of what we said with Jaws. There's the element in movies that if you showcase the horror too quickly, or you showcase the horror too early, or with not enough oomph, it becomes like the hidden monster is so much more scary than the one you can see. Right.
Yeah. Or I think A Quiet Place did it really well. That the monster is just so unbelievably deadly.
Yeah.
It's such a threat. It's so fast
that you are on edge. And I would
Mhm.
say it is horrifying, but there's almost just again, it's always, even Netflix kind of quantifies it differently. The thriller genre and the horror genre. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think there's they obviously blend together, but like we were talking earlier, M. Night Shyamalan has always landed in the thriller as opposed to the horror, right?
I think a good horror makes you like characters and then kills those characters.
Takes them away.
Yeah. That's what's supposed to be horrifying about it.
Right. And a thriller is kind of A Quiet Place, where you do care about the characters, and maybe they will escape, maybe they won't.
But like Jurassic Park, Crichton does this in a lot of his books, where he sets up a cast of characters and then kills them off in unique ways, and that's I think a fun part of horror. But both these first two movies were Spielberg.
Yeah, Spielberg.
He was really tapping into the horror genre back in the day.
It put him on the map, and Jaws put him on the map for sure. Do you have more slides? So it
is totally different book than it is a movie.
Oh yeah,
which
absolutely.
I would have to say, when I watch it, I am more, and probably because I didn't watch this young. Maybe I'm a bit desensitized, but when I watch both of the It movies, I'm not scared at all.
Right.
I am, however, impressed cinematically and visually and everything that they're doing with it. The modern ones, obviously.
What's his name? Is it Bill Skarsgård, or who's the Skarsgård?
Yeah,
that
Bill. Yeah.
Bill Skarsgård scares me as a human more than Pennywise does.
That he does as the Pennywise.
And this one, I think people remember it for the movies. People remember the movie portrayals of it and are kind of like, the book, whatever.
There's a lot of weirdness to the book, right?
Yeah, but it's the movies for these ones that do the trick.
Which the first one really does a better job than the second one. The first one, because the second one's about adults interacting with this. The innocence of the children is what makes the first one so creepy and so
I just listened to a story recently playing off the innocence of the children.
Yeah.
Like the whole first couple parts of the book was it's children, and then later it does a time jump to when they're teenagers. But the eeriness of everything when they were kids, that set up how everything played out.
Yeah. Have you guys seen the original It movie with Tim Curry?
No, just clips.
A lot of clips.
I would love to go back and watch those because Tim Curry's an interesting dude, and I just want to see him play Pennywise. I've never seen it.
This is more just a critique of the story and the film side of it. But like with the It movies, I think the thing that the audience finds so frightening is the clown, right? Is Pennywise. However, the story is about it becoming the embodiment of your fear, right?
Yeah.
Isn't it like an alien essentially?
It's like a demon from another planet. Kind of thing. The choice of like the personalized embodiment is Pennywise the clown, but it becomes multiple versions of fear for whoever it's interacting with.
It's kind of like a boggart or whatever from Harry Potter.
Right. And so I will say this, because they're trying to create the story, they're developing these characters and what they're afraid of, it becomes kind of not hokey. It just doesn't become frightening. So when it becomes the
Mhm.
embodiment of the young girl's abusive father, right? That
Mhm.
all of a sudden you're not as frightened of it anymore. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Because
So
it's not personalized to you.
it's not personalized to you, but they have to do it for the character development, but then you lose the fear side of it.
Mm.
Sure.
I think a good horror story, if you set up your characters really well and their fears really well, and you get the audience really invested in the characters, then the things that they are scared of, you will be scared of.
Yeah.
That's true.
Was
I
it
don't feel like the story did that for me, the film, but it's might have for other people.
was
But
this
like,
the only other slide? Because I wanna talk about another story. I don't wanna cut us short, but I
there
wanna
is one more, but like, just real quick, capitalizing on that idea of setting up the what people are scared of. Jurassic Park does a really great job of setting up the danger of the raptors
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
from the very beginning. You see the
Mhm.
guy get pulled in, you hear the noises. Alan Grant is a raptor expert. He knows how dangerous they are in theory,
Yeah.
and then they introduce Muldoon, who's like, "I think they should all be killed."
Yeah.
Right? They set it up so well that by the time the electric fences are down and the raptors are loose, you know that you should be scared.
What's
Yes,
the what's
because
the
no one
line that
wants to get eaten.
what's
Everyone can sympathize with the idea of not
Mhm.
wanting to be eaten by a monster.
what's the line that Muldoon says when he's holding up the gun? What's the famous line he says? What is it?
Uh,
Clever girl.
Clever girl.
we're being hunted.
I love that line. Really quickly, another Stephen King story book adaptation movie is that does not get any appreciation, but I love it and I watched it recently. Is Secret Window with Johnny Depp.
Oh,
Was
yeah.
that Stephen King?
That's another Stephen King
Yeah.
story he wrote back in the '90s, and
Good one.
they made a
The
movie
Shining,
adaptation.
too.
Yeah, The
Mhm.
Shining gets all the love.
It
The
they
Shining,
does.
yeah, that's why I didn't include it here, but The Shining book and The Shining movie both leave you, by the end, both leave you coming away horrified in very different ways.
Right.
Yeah, I've heard The Shining is a different book also though.
Mhm.
I'm curious how different Secret Window is compared to its book. I've never read the book, but I love the movie. Johnny Depp,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
definitely
What's
recommend
the
it.
last slide in here? I think I had 4.
Dracula.
Oh, yeah. So I used this movie
It's an
because it
awesome
was the
poster.
one I could think. Yeah, it is a really cool poster. It's almost Batman-esque.
Mhm.
So yeah, and then of course, like original horror stories like Bram Stoker's Dracula being translated in multiple ways, with multiple different kinds of Dracula movies. It's just such an interesting. You can clearly see how enamored people were with Dracula
Mhm.
at how many different iterations of
Yeah,
Dracula there are
there
and
are. What
vampires.
you just watched the one on the boat. What is the voyage of something?
The Last Voyage of the Demeter.
Yeah.
Yes. You watched that and you gave a review this was a couple
Yeah.
months back, but is that a book? I know Dracula
I don't
has
know.
been in a lot of different forms, but I'm
I
curious
don't
if
know.
that is just a movie adaptation or if that's kind of book.
I'm not sure. I think one of the best visual adaptations of Dracula is from the animated series Castlevania on Netflix. He's like the coolest Dracula.
The animated
He
series?
looks
You mean
he looks
the,
so much.
you're talking
He
about
looks like everything you
Hotel
want Dracula.
Transylvania.
No, not Hotel Transylvania.
I'm kidding.
But again, that's an interpretation of
Dracula, yeah.
Dracula. There's so many of them.
And it
It's
also certain stories set your mind free for imagination, I guess.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And the Dracula story really does that. I mean, how many long debates, Wyatt, have you and I had around if you were Dracula, how would you go about like controlling a town or controlling a
right.
city? Or
How would you go?
how would you conduct yourself?
How would you
My,
conduct yourself as a powerful immortal being?
Right.
my favorite Dracula interpretation is definitely Nicolas Cage in Renfield.
Wild.
I'm kidding. I've never seen the movie. I definitely should watch it.
So I think to kind of put a bow on this, for my thoughts, I think the movies it's always going to be a hit or miss on if it really captures your horror side. There are certain and people it's memorable when it does. Okay,
Mhm.
but books have the opportunity to capitalize on it more, but it's a stronger threshold of entry. It's a bigger threshold of entry because there's not a lot of readers, and it
Mhm.
does require you to be to enjoy reading and to enjoy fiction writing in order for you to get through that. That's a bigger barrier to entry than watching a 90-minute or 120-minute film, right? Um,
Yeah.
Yes.
so there's levels to it. I think books can be more effective for horror, but it's just gonna have a less pool of it's gonna have a lot smaller database pool, I guess.
Yeah.
Right?
It's also I listened to a horror book recently that it's kind of I think hit or miss finding the right style of horror book for you. Whereas with a movie you're going in expecting it to be scary, and so it's not as I mean everybody's kind of got there. I like this kind of horror movie as
Mhm.
opposed to this, but certain horror type books definitely are the books are very very different, very lots of range in them, so you
Right.
really got to find the right type for you. But yeah,
I have to
that's
pee
that.
quite
You gotta
badly.
pee, okay? I mean
Let's pause.
we talk here for a second.
Oh, we're actually going to talk, or we're going to cut this out.
I don't know, he didn't say which, so I guess I'm just gonna continue talking as if he may keep it in.
You may keep it in.
Yeah. So you said you watched A Fault in Our Stars. A Star Is Born.
I've also seen that movie, but I hated that movie. I love
Oh
A Star
yeah,
Is
me
Born.
too. Um, what what other movies have you watched recently? You have any others to report on?
To report on. So last week we already talked about this, but the One Love, I watched
Hmm.
that. I don't I don't know. I feel like I watch movies here and there, but I don't know if there's anything that's like, oh man, this is great.
Have you revisited a movie that you just that maybe you like you said with A Star Is Born? Have you revisited any other movies that you've been that maybe you wanted to appreciate better, or
What?
that you came to appreciate better after a second watch?
There definitely is, but I'm definitely blanking on this.
Mhm.
But are you thinking of something specifically? Because I definitely have. I don't know. Right now I'm blanking.
I know, like a little while ago,
Mhm.
when your sisters were here, we watched Mary Poppins,
Yeah, we did.
and
We did.
just going back to Mary Poppins and watching it with fresh eyes after I haven't seen it in a while was pretty crazy. It's incredible how they
Yeah.
filmed that movie, and it's really fun to watch when you're just sort of analyzing everything that's happening.
Mhm.
It's a very interesting movie to enjoy. I mean, and then also we watched The Three Musketeers, which is always a good time.
Yeah, actually
Tim
I'm
Curry.
going back and looking at what I've been watching on one of my apps that I watch things. Um this is going to get us talking. And I
Mhm.
don't mean to set up too much, but
No, go
for
ahead.
some reason I've been going back and watching some of the DC films,
Okay.
the
Yeah,
DC films that I only really watched once, Batman
I've
versus
done that.
Superman.
Yeah, I did that a
I've only
while
really
ago.
watched them once. I watched, Justice League,
Mhm.
and they're not that bad. There is some hokey parts of it, and it's a little bit unrealistic when they make them too powerful, but I don't mind them, and I don't know why they got as much hate as they did. They just
Mm.
for some reason they didn't hit that thing, and I think yes, we've talked about this at length. I think it's people are done with superheroes, maybe,
I
but
think it's I think people are done with everybody needs to have their take on superheroes, like,
yeah,
Zack Snyder has to have his take on Batman and his take on Superman.
Yeah.
Whereas something like The Dark Knight or all of those Batman movies, it's about Batman. And I think that's why people really hold it in such high regard as the definitive Batman movies, and the Matt Reeves Batman. I think people like, because it's like, this is just Batman and Gotham and the villain. It's not like we need this version, you know?
Yeah. I don't
It's
know.
like the director's like, I need to tell my Batman story.
Right.
That's what I've kind of
It's a
dabbled
little
as
bit
a second
fan
viewing
ficky.
here and there, because I've only seen those movies like once when they came out,
Mhm.
and now I'm watching a few of them, not all of them, here and there again,
That's
and they're not that bad. I'm tired of superheroes, so I agree.
See, but I think it really comes down again to like directors. When you have IPs like this, it's like
Mhm.
the director's like, I need to see my vision of this character. I need it seems like every director since Heath Ledger is like, I need to see my version of the
Of
Joker.
the Joker, yeah.
Right?
Because the Joker sells.
The
Mhm.
Joker sells.
But I don't think everybody needs to have their version of something. Just make Peter Jackson did it right. It wasn't his version of Lord of the Rings. It was
The version.
it was how can I best put to screen what is in the book.
Yeah.
Right. So it was like I need to see my version of Aragorn.
It's
Which-
interesting that you say this, because Facebook is trying to do their version of ChatGPT.
Yes. That's a decent segue.
I saw the opportunity and
I thought we agreed the person who is
But I saw the opportunity and I
We
Producer.
did. That's why it was halting.
the producer of
No,
the
it was a good
podcast gets to move
opportunity.
things along.
That was a good segue, actually. Different versions of different things, and yes.
So to give you guys,
Meta is doing their own AI chat.
I did not know this was a thing until you literally texted me last night.
Yeah. Well, I started noticing it in the Facebook Messenger thing, and then in my Instagram, and I'm like, what is this? So I started playing with it. And so Meta has created their own AI chat, and I think they're
Do
still
we have a name for it?
Meta AI
I'm pretty sure that's it.
is literally it. They're still training it, I think.
Yes.
But it's very interesting. It's very fast.
Mhm.
And we're going to talk about some of the pros and cons in that. And we're going to be talking about some of the concepts and ideas around more of this AI stuff. But
Can
in
I say something real
preparation, yeah, go ahead.
So you guys are saying how you guys saw it. I saw right as like it was like 3 minutes into him posting. He made a post. Mark Zuckerberg made a post on all his social medias saying, "Hey, Facebook, Meta, Instagram, all these platforms are getting this new AI based thing." And I don't remember. I watched the whole video, but I don't remember if he specifically compared it to ChatGPT or not. I doubt he did, because that would be a competitor, and that probably wouldn't go over good. But I saw it right when it happened, and I'm like, oh, this is interesting. I got on Facebook, started playing around with it, and then me and Wyatt kind of talked about it later that night when we got home from work. And what prompted me to tell Wyatt, hey, we should do a segment on this for the podcast.
Yeah, and I was thinking about doing something like that, but yes, you did mention it, and I think it's definitely a good idea. So what we did in preparation for this, we didn't have any rules or anything like games we've done in the past, but I just had everybody, generate some prompts, like something that could be used as a movie poster, and perhaps something that could be used as a YouTube thumbnail, and just see what you get. And we each generated 2. Except Josh generated a couple and said that he'd like to show the progression of how he got to his ultimate conclusion, which is good, because I did the same thing. I put in something, it wasn't what I wanted, so I continued to edit it until I got what I wanted.
Right.
So this is a good example. Show us the first slide. Which
Really quickly before you show us the first slide, I want to hear your guys' thoughts of yes, this is Meta, and Meta is a huge company, Instagram, Facebook, all this, but it's essentially a social media, at least it started out as a social media platform. Why are they
well,
creating a search engine with an AI search engine? What is your thought on that specifically, where you have to go to a platform like Facebook to use this, or it's on
well,
a
what
Facebook?
Meta's the umbrella company essentially now for Facebook, Instagram,
Yes.
WhatsApp, all of this stuff. And so they're integrating it into the things that people use,
Yeah.
like Facebook and Instagram and WhatsApp, because that's where people are. They can't really integrate it into Google.
Mm-hmm.
They want to integrate it into the places where people are, because people use Facebook and Instagram like search engines. They use
Right.
them to find things. They use them to talk to people. They use them to share ideas. And so if people are on those platforms, that's where they want them to use these tools.
Is
Mm-hmm.
this just curious? Is this the downfall of Google?
I don't know. It could. I'm assuming it could
It
be,
could be.
but Google. So what Google wants to be is to be able to answer your questions.
Yeah.
Meta can already answer your questions. I typed in a prompt. I was like, explain quantum physics to me. And it gave me 5 points explaining the very, very basics of quantum theory.
Yeah.
And
I
you can do
did.
that with ChatGPT as well. The biggest thing is that AI is not fully there, so it's not always correct. In fact, more times than not, there are details that are incorrect when AI
Mhm.
is giving you the answer.
Well,
Yeah, and they've already had some issues, I think, on a Facebook page where people were talking about it in the in a chat. I think the Meta AI claimed to have raised a disabled child. Like, that's a strange bug.
um,
And then it
I
apologized. And then when people were upset, it apologized.
I'm don't remember his name. Joseph, you might be more be able to give more information on this. Joe Rogan had an AI. I don't even know what his title is, but he's a doctor in AI essentially. He's been working for 20 years on AI based stuff, and
Yep.
um, he said specifically with what you guys just commented, if AI does not have the answers for what you need, it has a prompt in it most of the time that it will give an answer even if it's not right, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
It has
Yeah.
to give an answer. It can't just be like, I don't know that. I mean, and that kind of goes with Meta's AI that they've integrated. I think they've created some kind of things where I think because it's part of a company under the span of Meta, they
Mhm.
have created, I think they created backdoor things where if you put anything legal, like some of my prompts, I was saying, create a movie poster with Joaquin Phoenix as the Joker type thing. And
Mhm.
it was like, it will not give me this. And I know we've talked
Oh,
about this in
yeah,
the past,
a lot of the AIs won't.
but this Meta one feels a lot stronger about that. It was constantly telling me it could not do things
Mhm.
because I think Meta as a company, since this is under or on Facebook and it's under a company, they're very leery of, they're creating a lot of legal structures with this search engine.
Yeah, so, well, let's go ahead and jump into the first couple slides are gonna be Josh's, showing sort of the progression of what he got.
Okay. So Joshua,
So
take control here, Joshua.
show us your first slide.
Okay, so I first we'll start with my movie poster. So I said,
Mhm.
give me let me pull this up because I'm gonna actually pull up exactly what I prompted here.
I think this is an interesting photo for a lot of reasons. Um, I'm
Lighting wise,
guessing
it's
were
beautiful.
you specific with the Joker?
Okay, yes. So this is what I put in. Can you create a movie poster about Joker and Harley Quinn? And this is what it gave me. This is
And
the first.
I find that interesting because this is face paint is close to Joaquin, but this is very much looks like Heath Ledger.
Yeah.
Yes.
Heath Ledger's
And
Joker.
mixed.
I didn't say specifically. I just said movie poster, and that's all the prompts I gave it.
And the cartoon, the Harley Quinn is very much like cartoon Harley Quinn.
Mhm.
Yes. And I didn't mind what it gave me. It didn't look bad, but to me, it didn't look like a movie poster. So
Mhm.
I said again, I said, use the exact same photo as before, but add a title for the movie and who's playing in it. So I was trying to give it a title and some kind of credits,
Yeah.
for like a movie poster.
And now
then,
this one I think is interesting because his face is much more Joaquin-like.
Mhm.
yes, he does look more Joaquin.
Mhm.
And you notice, and this is the theme for most of my stuff. Why is the words cut off? Is this
Yeah,
the way?
I've seen that a lot as well.
Is this the way that Facebook has to send you the photo of this is how it's going to be cropped? It has to be cropped in this specific.
You have to be.
dimensions?
So what I learned is that you have to be more specific with word placement. You have to say, put the words, put these words and put them here.
Mhm.
Even
Okay.
if you say put them in the middle of the screen, it'll often put them at the bottom.
Yeah.
But they will be less cut off, which I
It
know.
disobeys.
Yeah. Which I noticed in a lot of these things. This AI is different from like the one we've used in the past. Bing takes a very, very almost literal interpretation of your prompts, right?
I like it better, though.
If you say, give me a wizard in brown robes casting a fireball, it will give you basically that image. If you start getting specific, it'll get real literal with it. It won't add a ton of extra colors. It won't do a lot of other stuff. This one, I've put a lot of prompts in with like, give me sketch style, give me watercolor, give me shadows, give me ink blots. It doesn't do very well with those
No.
things. But it gives you the picture very, very fast.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I just right off the bat, this is kind of like, if this is what you want to know by watching this video, spoiler alert, I liked Bing Image Creator better than this. There's still a lot of bugs, and there's a lot of things that like I said, there's a lot of back end stuff maybe
Mhm.
that is being regulated because it's under the market company of Meta that I don't like.
I will
don't like it at all.
say that the Bing Image Creator is based on DALL-E 3, and DALL-E 3 has had a lot more time to
Yes.
a lot more development. It's been around for a long time in terms of AI,
Yeah.
and so it's had a lot more time to get very, very good at its job. This one I think is a little bit newer, and so they're still training it.
Yeah.
This guy looks a lot
So-
more like Joaquin Phoenix.
Yeah. So this is my third prompt and my final movie poster. This is what I went with, even though it's still cut off. I said,
Poker Joker.
do that again, but don't cut off the words. And it still cut off the words, even though I told
Yeah.
it not
Well,
to.
it made a lot of words here.
It made a lot of words. So we
Right.
have Joker and Harley
It says
Quinn.
Joker, and Harley Quinn.
Toker. It says Toker Joker and Harley Quinn.
No,
Joker's wild.
Joker, and Harley Quinn.
And,
Joker's
yeah.
wild.
But you know what? If you just glance at this,
It looks like a movie poster.
It looks like Joker and Harley Quinn.
Yeah.
The,
And
the
then
font is formatted very interestingly. This
Yeah.
can
You can't-
inspire you so much. Like
Oh yeah.
if you're a graphic designer and you need inspiration, generate some stuff. You will become
Mhm.
inspired and you will know what to create, right?
Yeah.
bottom at the very two corners, you can see that he tried to create actors' names, but if you zoom in really close, they're unlegible to read. And I think that's where I don't know where it comes, where it's not going to create actual actors' names for you because it looks like it was trying to, but it's unlegible to read.
So I don't remember what it's called, but when these things generate things, they start very, very, very blurry, and they sort of de-blur until they have an image, right? If you blur your eyes and look at this, it looks just like a Joker and Harley Quinn. You can't see all the other stuff, but it looks like a movie poster, and that's sort of and going from unfocused to focused, they sort of start making stuff up to try to clear it up.
Right. It's interesting process. That
Yeah,
it
it
goes
is very.
through.
What's your YouTube thumbnail, Josh? What'd you get?
Okay, so this is
Really
this is my YouTube thumbnail, which it's not a thumbnail. I went through a lot of iterations to create a thumbnail. So first, I was trying something. I in my head I had the line. I don't know if you've ever seen this video. Theo Von says, "I went into that store and bought a statue of Cat Williams," and he's like, "That's a damn Cat Williams right there." That line. I was thinking of that in my head, so I said, create a thumbnail where Theo Von is buying a statue of Cat Williams. I thought that would be really funny. And it was saying, nope, can't do this. Nope, can't do this. I did it in a lot of different ways. I was like, create a Theo Von, Cat Williams, this. It kept saying, no, it could not do this at all.
It wasn't going to use the likeness of a real person.
Yes,
is what
I
the big thing is.
think that's what it was. So that's where I came across a lot of stuff that it wouldn't do for me. Then I changed it and said, create a thumbnail of Joker and Harley Quinn. And I didn't add these photos, but I have 2 other photos that it created. And I was like, these are just photos. I want a thumbnail. And I said, no, to create a thumbnail, and it wasn't giving me this.
But I think this is really great for thumbnail concept. Like,
yes,
I mean, we've already experienced in our own thumbnail creation using AI to help create things that you as a layman in art or visuals would not otherwise be able to create. And I'm going to point that out a lot on my thumbnail.
Yeah. And then the last thing, so I just said, can you create the same picture and add some text that says, still a better love story than Twilight? That was kind of a meme that was going around for a while. And I don't know if you can read it. This is kind of covered up on my screen. Let me pull it up. It says, our love story is better than Twilight. Is what it says.
Than Twilight. Yeah.
Than Twilight.
But so it got that in there.
It's in there, but the phrasing is weird.
Yeah.
It took some creative liberties.
Yeah. But this is
what I have.
It's already changing the meta for for YouTube thumbnail creation.
Yeah.
And it's going to change it for I think poster creation. I think poster creation is still going to take a significant. You're still going to need to have a significant hand in exactly what you want to create with a poster for a movie. But this is doing a really good job.
Right. Yeah. Who's next?
I believe yours or mine is up next.
Okay. So poster first, then thumbnail, right?
No, they're in the same. I was originally just going to have 3 slides, and it was going to be.
Okay.
It's both of yours.
So, all right. So the one on the left is my thumbnail. The one on the right is the poster. And so the poster was first draft. I didn't have to keep regenerating. It pretty much captured a good version of what I wanted. To get that style, however, I didn't prompt a style name. What I did is I said, make a movie poster in the style that many, or something along the lines that is from the movies posters from the 1980s. All right. And it gave me this really cool art style that looks hand-drawn. It's reminiscent of Indiana Jones. It's reminiscent of like the hand-drawn ones of Star Wars, you know?
Yeah. So is this supposed to be like Indiana Jones capturing Godzilla?
I did not say Indiana Jones. I said a man filming a monster coming out of the water, right?
I like it.
You did put the prompts, what did you say, old style or something like that?
I didn't say old style. I didn't give specific. I said create it in an art style or create it in the style of a movie poster from the 1980s.
So
That's
it's
what I said.
it's not Indiana Jones. It's a guy from the 1980s. What it is?
Okay, yeah.
It probably pulled from Indiana Jones poster to give him the hat. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I didn't prompt him wearing a hat. I kept it very simple, but I liked what it gave me, and I thought it was intriguing. What's the mix of a monster in the water and a man filming it? Like, that's an interesting mix. I think it created the other. So the I did a lot of versions of the thumbnail. Okay.
Yeah.
My ultimate goal was I needed an extreme face.
Mhm.
And I was going off this idea of like, if I was going to create a thumbnail for a baking channel.
Yeah.
And I wanted to say, like, imagine the title is "This Muffin Recipe Will Change Your Life." Okay. And I did say I want a floating muffin. I want an extreme face. I was going to try to have him looking at it. I couldn't get him to actually look at the floating muffin, no matter what I did. I also wanted kind of one muffin. It gave me two, but the more I went down, it just kept creating more and more muffins. So I actually went with the second version that it created, which is this one. All right. It also
How did
started.
you get Josh into this image? I was really surprised. I was like, wow, you did a really good job of kind of getting Josh.
I didn't mean to. But I like the extreme reaction. I like the floating muffin, and with a little bit of formatting using Photoshop and resizing and everything, you can make this into a quality thumbnail for YouTube for a baking. So that's really what I went after. And I think, honestly, again, going back to inspiration, even if you can't get it perfect, it is wonderful inspiration.
It really is. Yeah.
And it's also wonderful element creation, you know? Like that face of this guy with a surprise face, I would use it. I would touch it up a bit, but I would use it. I would also use the floating muffin. I would just make the muffin bigger off to the side and make it more, horizontal. So to fit a thumbnail style, but this is very close to what a good thumbnail is.
Wouldn't it be crazy though if you could use this as a template, take a picture of Josh's face and say to the AI, do this with this picture, and it would take Josh's face and do that?
I think they do have that. I don't know which ones because I've seen.
It would be pretty wild.
So like Think Media on YouTube for a minute when AI generation just came out, they were doing a ton of AI generated versions of the hosts, right?
Yeah.
On the thumbnails. They stopped doing it, but initially they were doing it a lot.
How do you know they stopped doing it?
Because I know. It's a good freaking question. It doesn't.
What if it just got so good? What if it got so good you can't tell the difference now?
So I didn't give it an art style. It seems like with Bing and this one, there's like a default. If you don't give it an art style direction, it defaults to this sort of photorealistic, but also not, like almost too soft.
There's still
perfect.
a little bit. It's almost like you took a real picture and really softened it.
Yeah.
There's
and made
still a little bit of
lighting
uncanny valley.
Yeah. So there's even but it defaults to kind of a version of photorealistic, you know. So yeah, that's mine. It's an interesting process. I actually found it a little bit easier to work with because I didn't get any blocks.
Well, I'll tell you this. It's easier to work with because the pictures generate so quickly, and you can edit your prompt, you can edit what you're trying to get from it very quickly, as opposed to Bing really takes its time.
There's also an element of this that's good for creators to just consider. So a lot of colors can cause your thumbnails and design to be wonky. And for some reason, because it's pulling from art and it's creating art, the color choices that it generates for you can be beautiful inspiration. The contrasting warm colors of the muffin makes it pop in contrast to the blue background. You know?
I've noticed that this image creator almost always has some sort of color palette going from one color to another. And like in the Godzilla looking one, it's like orange to blue.
Yes. Yes, and it's beautiful inspiration because if you don't know what color palette to choose when you're starting a piece of art, or you don't know like what's going to be the best contrast but
Mhm.
still visually pleasing, you could
Yeah.
sometimes be off a bit. But if you just get inspiration, you could literally copy the colors that it's using in contrast, and it's going to look wonderful. So this is a really really good tool for inspiration and assistance with
I'd
correct
also like to
graphic
say, like,
design.
brainstorming, so this being a part of Messenger, I was playing with it with Joe
Yeah.
last night a little bit, and you can just click @ and then hit the imagines, like /imagine, Meta AI imagine, and in the chat between me and Joe, I was able to generate a picture and send it to him.
Josh was
That's
smiling because he's like, "That's the tower."
I
that's
like
well,
because what we were
uh,
doing with the
my
tower
mind is
was
my mind is blowing up right now.
what
Like,
we were doing with the tower was we were generating pictures on Bing, downloading them, and then bringing them over
Mhm.
to Instagram to share our stuff. With this, you could just do it right there in the chat,
Yeah,
which
but
is
I've got
and you get
so
to
many
see the
ideas
person's
with this.
prompts. You
I've
get
got
to see
so
the other
many
person's
get to
ideas.
see
prompts.
their prompts and what they're doing. So if you want to sort of match their style to keep consistency, you can.
Right.
Um,
I've got so many ideas with
yeah,
this that would be
isn't that fun now?
awesome.
But the thing is,
So
they took the idea. So what we found beautiful in the tower is kind of like a fun early adaption idea.
yeah,
Now Instagram's capitalized on it. You could do
we're
it
gonna
all
be able
inside
to
Instagram.
change it, yeah, and it I think it's a really cool idea for storyboarding as well.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh.
So
Okay.
let's go to mine.
I feel like I'm Joseph right now thinking of when he thinks about wood.
Mhm.
That's out of context. It's wrong.
Like I'm talking about tree, like lumber. He
All right,
likes lumber.
so this
A
is
good
mine.
piece of oak.
All right.
So
I like the thumbnail. I like that.
my thumbnail, the prompts I put in here were, give me a modern like a modern a camera with too many lenses, um, on a red curtain background, and in the top left corner, in the top left corner, write the words "too much"
Yeah.
Question mark.
in um in orange in orange like color, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And this is what it gave me, and it
First
did a
try?
really good job. This was not first try.
Okay.
Um when I had to retool the prompt itself a couple of times till I got this exact image. And the reason I chose this is because it is there's a word for it, but it's I can't remember what it is. It's unrealistic,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's something that you can imagine, but you can't draw. Yeah, I mean, you could draw this. You could very easily. An artist can draw this. I can't.
Right.
But to have it imagine something
Mhm.
like this, a camera with too many lenses, right?
Yeah.
That's perfect. This is by itself. This right here would be a great thumbnail
Yeah.
for me to express the idea that cameras are doing too much.
Sort of. I think people would click on this video because they're like, "What camera does this? Like, what does
Exactly.
it do?" But there's
It-
not a camera like this that exists.
But yeah, the idea of conveying an idea that's outlandish using an extreme image, um, and I love it being on the red curtain
Yeah.
on this table with a reflection, mind you,
Yeah. A
with
reflection.
a blurry reflection is beautiful.
Right.
And so I really appreciated that, and it's really cool that you can create something that's wild that you can imagine and use it as a thumbnail. I've seen so many thumbnails in the past where I was like, how did they get an image of like a gun with too many barrels? You
Yeah.
know, it's like they had to edit that. They had to
Yeah.
create that themselves.
Your
Um,
movie poster's really good compared to
so
that's good.
this one was tough because I wanted a creature in the woods, but every time you put some sort of creature hiding in the darkness, it always every time puts this creature as close to the camera,
Yeah.
big scary face as possible. So I took the creature out, and I just put it's a dark, scary forest. It's misty. It's nighttime, and it's got the tagline. It's got in movie font. I put the tree line, and I said in the middle of the picture.
Did at the bottom.
There were a ton of them where it was cut off at the top and it
Yep.
was cut off at the bottom. And I finally got this one. This was actually the only one with these gray borders, which look really cool. And the tree line being at the bottom but not cut off.
Right.
But again, I've been on a horror kick, and I liked this image. I wanted a monster. It didn't give me the monster, like something creeping. I had an idea in my head of like, you know, the slats in an old wooden house, like an old wooden wall, and like an eye peering through.
Sure.
But this one worked really well.
I think this is a very effective test. Do you think I found the results I wanted pretty quickly? You guys seem like you struggled through it a touch.
Yeah.
Well, I was really just trying to. There
Get
were
something
certain
specific.
things. Yeah, I was trying to get really specific.
Now it's too.
And I mean, I got a couple different versions of what I wanted, and saved them. But like with this camera, a couple times when I would ask it to reimagine this, it would mess up the too much at the top. It would put YouTube like on the camera, or it would put too much like as words on the camera.
Right.
It gets weird if you hit reimagine too many times.
I think the beautiful thing of AI generation, if you're going to use AI generation in a piece of art or a thumbnail, is if you do this in conjunction with like the Photoshop's generative fill and stuff, like you're working with magic here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
For inspiration, for asset usage, for expanding an image that was created like this one, I think we're working with fire. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, I think there's so many opportunities. The hard thing is, as the competitive nature of that's already on YouTube, as something like this happens, you're going to see the bar rise again of competition. With AI generation. So everything on YouTube has to be beautiful and well done now, because if it's not, then you're not up to standard, you know?
Right.
You're not up to snuff.
Yeah.
Well, we don't do snuff here on this channel.
But it really is an interesting concept, what AI is doing. The way that Meta has integrated it into the things that people are using
smart.
Is very smart. That way I don't have to leave.
You have social media
Instagram.
and AI all right there.
I don't have to leave Instagram to go get my AI pictures.
Mine's not. So, a full confession, I don't have it on Instagram yet. I went into my apps and tried to update my Instagram. I do not have it on Instagram.
Interesting.
I have it on Facebook, and it came up right away. Well, not even Messenger. Like, if you go into my Facebook, there's a search bar right there at the top. It's like AI search, and I can find it right away. No Instagram yet. And I don't know if that's by the time this comes out in video, I imagine they'll be like, okay, this is fully out for everybody now. But it maybe they're having some glitches releasing it for everybody. And sometimes you don't update your app and get all this stuff.
Sure.
But I don't have it on Instagram. So,
but it was interesting when I was messaging Joe. I was like, hey, Joe, you can just type in @Meta AI.
Yep.
Image, and it'll generate something for you. And then I sent that to him, and under the message it went, that's right, I can do that. All you have to do is
it chimed in.
It chimed in. It would because I put @Meta AI, and it was it essentially thought it was a prompt.
Right. I gotta go, guys.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Well,
I gotta go. Unfortunately, hey. This podcast was longer than mine.
It was. I wasn't even paying attention to the time thing. Otherwise, I would have cut us
it's
off.
because we started talking about AI. We
My
enjoy
daughter's
it.
banging at the door, so I gotta go. she's had enough of me being missing.
Well, thank you guys for watching and listening. We'll see you in the next one.